Hey everybody, we're going to start talking today about percents. I'm sure you've seen the percent sign and heard the word percent before, and a percent is a kind of ratio. So we're going to talk about percent ratios today, and we're going to talk about percent ratios tomorrow. So today's question is like, what percent is that? So go ahead and label your next page, percent ratios, what percent? When you are done, close your math notebook. You're going to just concentrate through the I do, and then we'll write down Alright, so special kinds of ratios. We've been talking about ratios for a while. Unit rates are a special kind of ratio we've already talked about. They're a ratio where one of the quantities is 1, something to 1, or something to 1, or something to 1. A percent is another special kind of ratio, and it is a ratio out of 100. So it's how many parts for every 100 things is a percent ratio. And you have probably seen the percent sign like this. Right? So if you see like 70%, that's the same. That's saying that's a part to whole ratio of 70 out of every 100. 70 per 100. That's what the percent sign means. Alright, so let's calculate some, why don't we? Simple one. So this is true. Science, I think I told you guys this last year when we were studying ecosystems in 4th grade. 3 out of every 4 animals on Earth is an insect. True. If you took every animal on Earth and put them in groups of 4, 3 out of every 4 animals would be an insect on Earth. True story. I'm not even making that up. That's how many insects there are. Tons. So it's a simple ratio problem to calculate what percent that is. So we're going to say out of every 4 animals, 3 of them part to whole, part animals, whole animals, part to whole ratio. 3 out of every 4 is the same as, remember, a ratio is out of 100. So it's kind of saying, well, if we had instead of having out of 4, if we had 100 animals on Earth, how many of them would be insects? And it's a simple ratio to solve. I know my denominators are times 25. So my numerators are times 25. And I would say that 75% of all the animals on Earth are insects. Can you believe that? True story. That's all it is to it. It's just a ratio out of 100. Special ratio. All right, open your math notebook. Let's do the next one together. Remember on a We Do, I know I haven't mentioned it in a while. We Do, you can either pause it, work it out on your own, and then unpause and see how you did. Or you can let me do it and then write it down. Or you can kind of do a little pause, write it down, do a little pause, write it down, and so on like that. So first thing I want to write in your notes here, what is a percent ratio? A percent ratio is a special ratio out of 100. So for instance, 75% in our last question, that means 75 part to whole ratio out of 100, or 75 for every 100. We can put in the definition now too, part to whole. It's a special kind of part to whole ratio. All right. And so that's the definition of a percent ratio. Let's do this one. So tests, that's a big percent one, right? Most of the time when you have a graded paper, it's a percent question. And now you'll know how to easily calculate your grade on anything if you know how to do a percent ratio. So let's take this one. Jason got 13 questions correct out of 15 on his social studies test. What percent is that? I do a lot of 15 question tests. I don't know why. I know you guys know how to calculate it for 10. You know how to calculate it for like probably 5 or 20, but 15 is a tougher one. So he got 13 out of 15, and we want to know his percent score. We want to know how many is that. If it had been a 100 question test, how many questions would we expect him to get right at this same ratio? So, if you wanted to think about it, we're, 13 right for every 15 means if it would be 26 right for every 30, and so on, and we're going to keep going until we get 100. If you just want to kind of think about what we're trying to do here. We imagine he gets the same ratio of questions right and wrong. We just go up till he's done 100 questions, because that's kind of an easy number to think about. So 15 times what is 100? I don't know. So I will calculate. 100 divided by 15 is that. So I'm going to round that. What I'm going to do, so trick here. When you get a decimal that never ends like this, just goes on and on and on and on and on. In your calculator, leave it there. I'm just going to leave this in my calculator. But when I write it, I'm going to write it as 6 and 6/10 repeating. Remember that sign means 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, on and on and on and on. Now I don't want to type that into my calculator to do times the 13. So I'm just going to, what I like to do, I just leave it in the calculator and now do that times 13. That way I don't have to do that. And so it looks like he's going to get a score of that. So I'm going to round that decimal. So as a teacher, honestly, I would probably just give you an 87 as a grade because you're past 86.5. But possible percent, you could say he got 87%, or you could say he got 86 6/10% if you wanted, or 86 66/100%. Any of those are fine answers, as is even this. All those are perfectly fine. Well, this really looks nasty, doesn't it? 2 symbols in one thing plus a decimal. Most of your teachers would just give you the whole number grade, though. I had a teacher in 9th grade. She would give grades like this. You would get a grade with a decimal in it. If that's what the grade came out as, that's the grade you got. It's just what she did. That's percent ratios. They're just ratios out of 100. I use proportions on all the examples we did today. You can use any strategy you want. We could have made tape diagrams. We could have made double number lines up to 100. We could have drawn a coordinate plane. I'm quickest at proportions, so I just kind of usually stick with that at this point, but either one works. So that's a percent. If you need to go back and see the I do or the we do again, please do, so that you come to class understanding what to do for your you-dos. See you then.